the gentleman from North Carolina. I mean, what we're dealing here is dealing with jobs. And I think what you shared in your time back in the district is small businesses, as we've seen, small business present 44% of the total U.S. private payroll and create more than half of the non-farm jobs in the gross domestic product here. We've got to look at this. This is something that I think we could all come together, as the gentleman from Indiana stated just a few moments ago. This could be a bipartisan issue as we look to jobs and things we can bring to the floor. I know in talking to you, and you're passionate about this, we came up here to try and help. We came up here to bring the voices of those who could not be up here on a given day to help them in their businesses and work hard. And I appreciate you so much for sharing your experiences from North Carolina and really what we're doing fighting hard against these regulations so that we can see more jobs created.
Well, as my friend from Georgia knows, numbers don't lie. And when we were spending $1.75 trillion a year complying with regulations, that's a lot of money.
It is that. Well, I appreciate the gentleman for being here tonight. You know, it was just, and I think this is something that we all see. In fact, in a 2011 speech, President Barack Obama stated that rules have gotten out of balance, and the result is a chilling effect on growth and jobs. You know, I believe the President's correct about that. The rules have become so skewed that our nation's regulatory system is at war with Americans' businesses. In fact, he went ahead and even in executive order stated the last barriers we're trying to remove and those that are outdated, unnecessary regulations. I've ordered a government-wide review, and if there are rules on the books that are needlessly stifling job creation and economic growth, we will fix them. I tell you what, I'll agree with the President on this, and I want to say this is something that we can move forward with, and it's something that has an effect because right now these burdens killing American industry and American jobs. Where they're having to, when businesses are more concerned right now, 40% is what I've seen in the latest survey from Morgan Stanley, said 40% of companies say policy uncertainty in Washington is preventing them from putting investments and job creation to work. This is something we've got to be a part of fixing because it matters, and it matters for jobs. Industries such as manufacturing, technology are fighting to compete in a global market, but they first must survive the regulatory beast that is strangling innovation and growth. Congress should be encouraging innovation and make it easier for businesses to bring new products or processes to the market. Outdated regulations should be cleared off the books, especially those created by unelected bureaucrats. Let's go back to the basics of regulatory overhaul and restore a common sense approach to regulations that encourage innovation and allows job creators to thrive. I wrote to all the businesses in Northeast Georgia and asked them to tell me how regulations are impacting their ability to grow and create jobs. Here are some of the responses that we received back. One response said, due to new regulations that require businesses to issue 1099s to virtually every employee that we write a check to, we have to be more selective when we consider a new hire. I no longer have the opportunity to give unemployed folks a shot at the job to see how they're going to do. We have to make them full regular employees right out of the chute, so we just don't look at hiring as many people. We look at other employees to work more hours. Another of my constituents said that the biggest issue we face from the federal government is the EPA's lack of approval of products in a timely manner and their removal of excellent safe products from the market altogether. You see, unfortunately, regulatory burdens created by the EPA are all too common story. A business owner in Northeast Georgia wrote to me that currently the EPA is requiring off-road diesel engines to meet new tiers or levels of exhaust emission standards. These new standards are changing every 1 to 2 years. The final, this person wrote, we hope will be in place by 2015. The result is of the dramatic and frequent changes in regulation is the complete redesign of our products, which would allow us to retool and move manufacturing to the U.S. cannot happen effectively until 2015. At that time, we hope to move manufacturing of our products back to Georgia. I say hope to because the rapid rise in regulations under the current administration may cause us not to move production at all. We are all for protecting the environment and are being good corporate citizens. However, the new regulations are burdensome, they're costly, and add no value to the productivity of the product or the marketplace. You know, I couldn't have said that better myself. Regulations should be expedient, unambiguous, minimizing the uncertainty facing industry and businesses. This is how the government can facilitate and no longer debilitate economic growth. I appreciate the comments from my colleagues tonight. It has been clear that we need regulatory relief, and it's greater now than ever. As we've heard tonight, for the first time in history, the estimated cost of regulation is more than half the federal budget itself. Let me just stop right there. For the first time in history, the estimated cost of regulation is more than half the federal budget itself. And we wonder why we're struggling with jobs right now. We wonder why our businesses are struggling with what they're going to do and how they're going to manage. You see, I'm a firm believer. It's been spoken of here tonight. There's many times we come to this House floor and we talk about things in ambiguous terms. We talk about the big picture. We talk about the process. And people hear those conversations, they hear these words, but they're not really sure how it affects them. And I'm a firm believer, both Democrat perspective or Republican perspective, how we can best lead is by understanding and giving people information on why this matters to them. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes here tonight talking about that. It is troubling in a time where families are struggling to make ends meet. American families are paying almost $15,000 per year in hidden regulatory taxes. $14,678 in hidden regulatory taxes. Now, you want to know how that affects. You want to know what that's going on, and you want to know how we're causing people to spend. And we're also at the same time saying we want to create new jobs, we want to create new opportunities. Well, here's what happens. Instead of paying hidden regulatory tax, American families could, one, buy a new car. A 2013 Ford Fiesta, $13,200. A 2013 Chevrolet Sonic, $14,185. We hear it all the time, how manufacturing creates jobs on all levels, starting from the manufacturing, from the parts and the dealers and the auto parts that come into this, how they all work together. Well, instead of paying these regulatory costs, why don't we get them to buy a new car? I mean, I think that's what the American people would like. I think that's what our auto dealers would like. That's what the others in the chain of automotive supply would like. But instead, they're trapped and they're bound. Most of the rules and regulations are preventing our businesses from growing, a result of other things like Obamacare, and many provisions of this legislation are counterproductive. But I tell you what, I want to go back to what it means to the person sitting around the table tonight who may have just somehow turned over here and said, what are they talking about in their nation's capital? Well, what we're talking about is your pocketbook. What we're talking about is regulations that can help you spend money the way you want to. Spend money for your family's future. Spend money that revives our economy and strengthens us as a nation. This is what we're talking about. You can send their child to college. 1 year of tuition and fees at the University of Georgia is $10,262. 1 year of tuition and fees at the University of Florida, $61.50. Instead, they're trapped paying almost $15,000 in hidden regulatory tax that comes through every year. We all know the need for some rules for everyone to abide by. Make the regulations where they're simple to understand and inexpensive to comply with. Now, one of the problems I also see in Washington sometimes is we come to the floor and we talk about problems, but we never provide an answer. We never provide an answer on what can actually be done. As my colleagues and I have demonstrated, we are committed to providing regulatory relief to businesses and families. There are several key pieces of legislation that are first and important steps in alleviating the regulatory burden. The first bill I introduced in Congress was H.R. 1493, the Sunshines for Regulatory Decrees and Settlement Acts of 2013. This legislation ensures the EPA cannot continue to enter into closed-door agreements with environmental groups without transparency and public participation. It does not affect the ability to bring suits. It just makes them clearer. Many of the costly rules and regulations that have impacted businesses and industries across the nation have resulted from these backroom consent decrees, and it's time we bring transparency and public participation back into the rulemaking process. What else can we do? Require congressional approval for all major rules, H.R. 367. We end the sue and settle EPA settlements. That's the one I just mentioned, H.R. 1493. We can require federal agencies to choose the lowest cost rulemaking alternative, H.R. 2122. There are things that we can do. And I believe the American public is looking to this place. They're looking to their capital for real solutions. They're looking to their capital for hope. They're looking for relief. Every day, men and women get up and they wake their children up, as I did this morning, and they go to work. And they go to make a better life. Many of those are small business owners wanting to add jobs, wanting to